The night was heavy with rain. The streets of Sector 9 City were almost empty. Neon lights flickered on broken signs, and the sound of thunder rolled over the skyline. Commander Raiden Holt walked alone, his coat soaked, his eyes tired. He had just returned from the Zorv War, the longest human-alien conflict in history. For the first time in years, Earth was quiet, but inside Raiden, there was no peace. He had seen too much death. Too many faces he could not forget. He just wanted silence, but fate had other plans. As he walked through the alley toward his small apartment, he heard something. A soft voice, faint, trembling. "Please, help me." Raiden stopped. He turned, scanning the darkness. And there she was, a girl, no, not quite human, kneeling in the rain under a flickering streetlight. Her silver hair clung to her pale face. Her skin glowed faintly blue, and her eyes shimmered like liquid light. She looked afraid, shivering, her clothes torn and bloody. Raiden's hand went to his sidearm. "Who are you?" he demanded. The girl looked up, her lips trembling. "In bed, in the shower, day or night?" She whispered weakly. "I'll do anything." "Hire me, human!" "Let me stay." Raiden froze. Her voice was broken, but the words hit him like a ghostly echo. No alien should speak English like that. No alien should sound so human. He stepped closer, careful, scanning for weapons or traps. "Are you hurt?" She nodded slightly, clutching her side. Her hand was covered in a faint blue liquid. Her blood. "I escaped," she said softly. "They were going to erase me." "Erase you?" Raiden frowned. "Who?" But before she could answer, a sudden flash of light appeared in the sky, a drone searchlight sweeping the alley. Raiden grabbed her arm. "Move!" They ran through the rain, turning corner after corner until they reached his building. Inside, Raiden locked the door, breathing hard. The girl collapsed on the floor, coughing, trembling. He hesitated, then wrapped a blanket around her. Up close, she looked even stranger. Alien markings ran along her neck, but her eyes were unmistakably human. "What's your name?" he asked. She looked at him for a long moment. "Lyra," she whispered. "They called me Lyra." Raiden poured her a glass of water. "Where did you come from, Lyra?" Her eyes flickered. "A place with white walls, lights that never turned off. People in masks. They said I was property." Raiden's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors, secret human labs experimenting with alien DNA during the war. But those were only whispers. "Why come to me?" he asked. "Why not run anywhere else?" Lyra looked down. Her voice shook. "Because I know your name, Commander Raiden Holt. I know what you did on Eris Station." Raiden froze. His blood went cold. That mission was classified. Nobody outside his team knew about it. "How do you know that?" he demanded. She met his eyes. "Because I was there. Before I died." The room fell silent. Only the rain tapped against the window. Raiden stared at her, his heart pounding. She couldn't be telling the truth. Could she? He studied her face again. Something about her seemed familiar. The shape of her eyes, the tone of her voice. It reminded him of someone he lost years ago, a woman from a failed mission. But that was impossible. Lyra leaned back, exhausted. "They will come for me soon. They always do." "Who?" Raiden asked again, his voice low. "The ones who made me," she said. "Humans." Raiden didn't answer. He walked to the window, staring out into the rain. Maybe she was lying. Maybe she was a trap. But something inside him whispered otherwise. Something in her eyes told him she wasn't the enemy. He made a choice he would regret for the rest of his life. "You can stay here tonight," he said quietly. "But if you're lying, I'll hand you over myself." Lyra nodded slowly. "Thank you, human." She smiled faintly, sad, tired, almost innocent. Then she closed her eyes and drifted into uneasy sleep. Raiden sat in the corner watching her. He told himself it was only for one night, just until he found out who she really was. But deep down, he already knew this night would change everything. Outside, lightning flashed again. In that brief glow, Raiden saw something strange. Marks on Lyra's wrist glowing through her skin. A symbol he had seen once before on the doors of a secret military facility, Project Rebirth. His heart sank. He reached for his communicator, but before he could activate it, Lyra's eyes opened again. She looked directly at him, even though she shouldn't have known he was moving. Then, in a soft, haunting voice, she whispered, "They are coming for you, Raiden." Thunder cracked across the sky. The lights flickered. And somewhere outside, a mechanical hum echoed in the rain, growing louder. Raiden realized too late, this was no rescue. It was the beginning of something far darker. The storm had not stopped. Lightning flashed through the broken glass window, painting the room in ghostly white. Raiden sat awake, his pulse still racing. Outside, the sound of drones echoed in the distance. He checked his weapon, then looked back at Lyra, the strange girl who had turned his quiet life into a storm of questions. She was still asleep on the couch, her silver hair spread across the pillow, her breathing soft and steady. For a moment, she looked peaceful, almost human. But Raiden knew better. The mark on her wrist, the same one he'd seen in the military's Black Ops project files, was proof she was part of something forbidden. He whispered to himself, Project Rebirth, so it was real. A faint sound interrupted his thoughts. A hum. Lyra's body began to glow, soft blue lines pulsing under her skin. Her eyes opened suddenly, not blinking. Not normal, she whispered. They're here. Before Raiden could speak, the power went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Then boom, a blast from outside shattered the silence. The window cracked and small shards of glass rained down. Raiden ducked, drawing his gun. Stay down! But Lyra didn't move. She stood up slowly, her eyes glowing brighter. I can stop them, she said quietly. But you won't like what you see. She raised her hand. The air shimmered, bending like heat waves. A shock of blue light burst from her fingers, forming a barrier across the door. Outside, something banged, metallic, heavy. Raiden saw through the cracks, dark figures in armor, moving with inhuman speed. Government soldiers. But their eyes glowed red. Raiden's stomach twisted. They're hybrids, too, he muttered. Lyra turned to him, her voice shaking. They made me to control them, but I escaped before the programming finished. He stared at her. Programming? She nodded, tears mixing with the rainwater on her cheeks. They built me in a lab. I'm half human, half Zorv. They called me Lyra 7, the perfect weapon. I was supposed to obey humans. But something went wrong. Raiden kept his gun raised, but his hands trembled. Why tell me this? She looked at him, desperate. Because you created me. The words hit him like a bullet. What? She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. Your DNA, your mission logs. Your memories. They used them to build me. You're my base code, Raiden. His mind spun. He remembered signing confidential reports years ago. Biometric samples, mission blood scans, routine military procedure. But he never imagined this. Before he could respond, the wall exploded inward. 3 armored soldiers entered, their metal suits dripping with rain. Raiden fired instinctively. The shots hit, but the soldiers barely flinched. Their synthetic skin absorbed the impact. Lyra screamed. Blue light burst from her hands again, sending one soldier flying into the wall. The others advanced. Raiden rolled behind the table, shooting again. He hit a fuel line. Fire erupted across the room. Smoke, light, chaos. Lyra's voice echoed through the flames, low and filled with power. Leave us alone! The soldiers froze mid-step. Their eyes flickered, then went dark. They collapsed like puppets with cut strings. Raiden lowered his weapon, coughing in the smoke. What did you do? Lyra trembled, her energy fading. I spoke their command code. I'm linked to them. Like I was linked to you. She stumbled, falling to her knees. Raiden rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold, almost lifeless. He looked into her glowing eyes, confused and angry. What are you really, Lyra? She smiled weakly. Something that should not exist. Raiden carried her to the window, watching the burning street below. He could see the drones retreating, but he knew this was only the beginning. They'll come again, he said. I know, she replied softly, but now you understand. They didn't end the war, Raiden. They continued it, in secret. Her words cut deep. He thought of his soldiers, men who died believing they fought for peace, all lies. And now the truth stood before him, half human, half alien, built from his own blood. Lyra looked up at him, tears in her glowing eyes. They will never stop until I'm gone, but I don't want to die. Raiden's chest tightened. He didn't know if she was telling the truth, but he could see fear. Real fear, he had seen it before. In humans, then we run, he said quietly. But first we find out who made you. Lyra nodded slowly. The answers are inside the core facility. The same place I escaped from. But once we go there, there's no coming back. Raiden loaded his gun. I stopped being afraid a long time ago. Lyra smiled faintly, her voice trembling. That's what they said before they turned you into a god. Raiden froze. What did you say? But before she could explain, her eyes rolled back and she collapsed in his arms, unconscious. The room filled with the distant wail of sirens. Outside, the city burned in blue fire, and as Raiden looked down at the girl he barely understood, one truth echoed in his mind. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was part of the experiment. The city never truly slept, but that night, Sector 9 felt haunted. Flames flickered in the streets where the soldiers had fallen. Drones scanned from above, searching for any sign of movement. Inside a half-burned building, Commander Raiden Holt watched the skyline from a broken window, his jaw tight, his heart heavier than ever. On a mattress behind him lay Lyra, pale, weak, and silent. Her faint blue light had dimmed, but she was still alive. Barely. He'd wrapped her wounds and tried to rest, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw the look on her face when she said the words that shattered his mind. They used your DNA to create me. Now he couldn't stop wondering. How many more like her existed? And what if she wasn't the first or the last? Raiden loaded his rifle, checked the window again. Far below, armored patrols were sweeping the streets. They were searching for her, and maybe for him too. He knew what would happen if the government found out he was helping a runaway hybrid. Execution, no trial, no mercy. Lyra stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly again. Where are we? She whispered. Raiden turned. Safe for now, but not for long. She tried to sit up, but pain stopped her. They'll track me. They always do. Raiden frowned. Then we keep moving. You said the answers are in the core facility. Where is it? Lyra hesitated. Underground, beneath the old city, hidden under the ruins of the Central Research Tower. Her voice trembled. If we go there, you'll see what they did to you, to me, to everyone. Raiden's hand tightened on his gun. He wasn't ready for answers, but he knew hiding wasn't an option anymore. He grabbed a pack, helped Lyra to her feet. Then let's move before daylight. The rain had stopped, but the smell of smoke filled the air. Raiden and Lyra slipped through the alleys, keeping to the shadows. The city above was bright and alive, but down here, in the underlevels, it felt dead. Broken screens flickered on the walls, playing old government slogans. Peace through progress. Humanity above all. Lyra stopped in front of a steel door marked with faded numbers. Here, she said softly. Raiden examined it, sealed tight, locked by old tech. But Lyra raised her hand. A soft hum vibrated through her skin and the lock clicked open. Her power, though faint, was still there. They stepped inside. The air was cold and thick with dust. Old machines lined the walls, blinking weakly like dying eyes. Raiden's flashlight cut through the dark, revealing shattered glass tubes and broken restraints. It looked like a lab, but not one built for healing. This was a place for creation. Lyra touched one of the cracked tubes, her voice trembling. This is where I woke up for the first time. Raiden looked around. How long ago? I don't know, she whispered. Time didn't exist here. Only pain. Her hand brushed against a panel and suddenly a hologram flickered to life. A man appeared, white coat, cold eyes, voice clinical. Subject Lyra 7, human Zorv hybrid prototype. Genetic source Commander Raiden Holt. Psychological imprint, partial success. Emotional instability, high risk. Raiden's stomach twisted. The man continued. Subject shows advanced empathy response toward the donor's identity. Recommend immediate memory erasure. Lyra turned away, shaking. I wasn't supposed to feel anything, but I did. I remembered you. Raiden clenched his fists. He had killed aliens for years, believing he was protecting humanity. Now he saw the truth. Humans had been playing gods, creating life only to destroy it. He whispered. They made monsters, and called it peace. Suddenly, a loud metallic clang echoed from the hallway. Lyra gasped. They found us. Raiden raised his rifle, motioning for silence. They moved behind a machine hiding in the shadows. Footsteps, heavy, mechanical, entered the room. A voice crackled from a helmet speaker. Target signal detected. Capture alive. Raiden took aim. Not today. He fired 3 quick shots. The soldiers returned fire, bullets tearing through the lab. Glass shattered, machines exploded. Lyra covered her ears, screaming as bright blue energy burst from her body again. The floor cracked. The walls shook. The soldiers were thrown backward, their armor short-circuiting. Raiden pulled her close, dragging her toward a side exit. "Move, Lyra. Don't look back." They ran through the dark tunnels, their footsteps echoing. Behind them, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. Somewhere above, more drones were descending. After what felt like hours, they reached a maintenance shaft. Raiden climbed first, helping Lyra up after him. When they finally emerged into the open air, dawn was breaking. The first light of morning touched the ruined skyline. They were safe, for now. Lyra collapsed against the wall, trembling, her light flickering weakly. "I can't control it," she whispered. "Every time I feel fear or pain, it grows." Raiden looked at her, his voice softer now. "You're not a weapon anymore, Lyra. You're a person. Remember that," she gave a faint smile. "You talk like a soldier who still believes in good." "Maybe I'm just tired of bad," he said. For a brief moment, the world was silent again. Only wind, dust, and faint sunrise. But deep underground, the core facility's systems came online. A mechanical voice spoke through the static. "Subject Lyra 7 located. Activate retrieval protocol. Deploy Hunter Unit Vorn." Far away in the dark tunnels below the earth, something stirred, a figure rising from a metal pod, its eyes glowing crimson. The chase had only begun. The morning light barely touched the ruined city when Raiden and Lyra found shelter inside an abandoned subway station. Broken trains sat on dead tracks. Water dripped from the ceiling. Rats scurried through the shadows. For the first time in days, there were no drones above them, no soldiers chasing their trail, only silence. Raiden sat near a rusted pillar, checking his weapon. Lyra sat a few feet away, hugging her knees, her faint blue glow lighting the dark tunnel around her. She looked weak, yet something about her had changed. Her eyes were sharper, her breathing calmer. After a long silence, she spoke. "You saw what they did in the lab," she said softly. "You know what I am?" Raiden didn't look up. "I know they made you, but I still don't know why." Lyra looked down at her hands. Her palms shook as she whispered, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." "Try me," Raiden said. She hesitated, then slowly stood. "Do you remember Operation Eris?" she asked. Raiden's heart stopped for a moment. That mission had been sealed under top-secret clearance. Even speaking of it was forbidden. "Yes," he said quietly. "We lost 20 men that day." Lyra nodded. "You didn't just lose them. You gave them to Project Rebirth." Raiden frowned. "That's not true. I was ordered to destroy alien tech, not—" He stopped. His mind flashed back to that day. The data drives he delivered, the blood samples he signed off without question. He realized he never asked what they were for. Lyra's voice trembled. "They used your DNA, but not just yours. They took parts of every soldier from that mission. They built us from your memories, your fears, your emotions." She looked at him, eyes glowing brighter. "We're not alien, Raiden. We're human remade." Raiden felt the world tilt. He had fought for humanity his whole life. Now he realized humans had become the monsters. He whispered, "You're saying you're my copy?" She shook her head. "Not a copy. A mirror, half of you. Half of them. That's why I can feel what you feel." He stared at her in silence. Then quietly, he said, "Is that why I saw visions when you touched me? The burning cities?" Lyra nodded. "They're memories. But not mine, yours. They built me using your neural patterns. When I connect to you, I see your past." She stepped closer. "And you see my pain." Raiden's hands trembled. He didn't know whether to hate her or protect her. But before he could respond, a loud metallic sound echoed down the tunnel. Footsteps. Slow, heavy. Raiden's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his rifle, signaling Lyra to stay behind him. The sound grew louder, metal against stone. Then a deep voice filled the darkness. "Lyra 7. Subject unstable. Retrieval initiated." From the shadows, a tall figure emerged. Black armor, glowing red eyes, and a strange mark across his chest. Lyra gasped. "Vorn!" Raiden raised his weapon. "You know him." Lyra's voice shook. "He's another hybrid. Made after me. The perfect hunter." Vorn's head tilted slightly, his voice calm and cold. "You were supposed to die, sister. They sent me to finish it." Raiden fired without hesitation. Bullets sparked off Vorn's armor. Vorn moved fast, too fast. He vanished. then appeared behind Raiden, slamming him to the ground. Raiden grunted, trying to fight back, but Vorn's strength was beyond human. Lyra screamed, raising her hands. Blue light exploded from her palms, sending waves of energy down the tunnel. Vorn staggered, momentarily stunned, his armor cracking. Raiden pulled her back. "Go, move." They ran through the tunnels as explosions followed them. The ground shook, dust falling from above. They reached an old elevator shaft and climbed up, the metal groaning under their weight. Halfway up, Lyra stopped. "Raiden," she said breathlessly. "He's not trying to kill us. He's scanning me." "What do you mean?" "He's searching inside me. Like he's looking for something." A metallic voice echoed below. "You can't run from what's inside you, Lyra. You carry the core." Raiden looked at her. "The core?" Lyra's face turned pale. "It's a failsafe. A code they put inside me. It can restart the entire hybrid army, or destroy it." Raiden realized the truth. She wasn't just a survivor. She was the key. The elevator shook violently. Vorn was climbing after them. Raiden pulled Lyra up the last few meters and forced the door open. They crawled into an old control room filled with dust and broken monitors. Lyra fell to her knees, breathing hard. "We can't keep running. He'll never stop." Raiden wiped sweat from his brow. "Then we stop him." Lyra looked up, tears in her glowing eyes. "You don't understand. He's stronger, smarter, he's what I was supposed to be." Raiden knelt in front of her. "Maybe, but he doesn't have what you have." She frowned. "What's that?" He gave a small, tired smile. "A heart." For a moment, Lyra looked at him, silent, trembling, unsure what to say. Then outside the shattered window, a massive explosion lit up the night sky. Vorn was close again. Lyra's light began to glow brighter, filling the room with soft blue radiance. "I can feel him," she whispered. "He's part of me too." Raiden stood, aiming his rifle toward the door. "Then it's time we end this. Together." She nodded, and for the first time there was no fear in her eyes, only resolve. In the dark tunnels below, Vorn raised his head. His red eyes flickered, and for the briefest second something like emotion crossed his face. He whispered, almost human, "She's changing, becoming more than her code." And then he began to climb again, faster than ever. The hunt wasn't over, but the truth was now clear. Lyra wasn't just a creation. She was evolution. The wind howled through the shattered buildings as dawn turned the city sky gray. Raiden stood near the broken window of the control room, scanning the streets below. Everything looked empty. Too empty. But he knew something was coming. Something powerful. Something built to kill. Behind him, Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes closed. Her hands glowed faint blue as she whispered soft words, strange, like data turning into sound. Raiden asked quietly, "What are you doing?" "Listening," she replied. "The network still breathes beneath the city. I can hear the soldiers talking. They're searching for us, and he's with them." Raiden tightened his grip on his rifle. "Vorn?" Lyra nodded slowly. "He won't stop until I'm gone." "But he isn't just hunting me. He's hunting you too," Raiden frowned. "Why me?" Lyra opened her eyes, glowing brighter. "Because you're the source. Without your code, none of us exist. You're the origin of every hybrid mind." Before Raiden could answer, the ground trembled. A deep metallic hum rolled through the air. Something heavy was moving toward them, fast. Raiden looked out the window again. A black-armored figure was walking down the street below, through smoke and dust. Each step cracked the pavement. "Vorn, move," Raiden ordered. He pulled Lyra to her feet, grabbed their packs, and they ran for the stairwell. Halfway down, an explosion ripped through the lower floors. The building shook violently, dust and glass raining from the ceiling. "Vorn had arrived. Keep running," Raiden shouted. They burst out through a side door into an alley choked with fog and smoke. Lyra stumbled but kept moving. "He's locking onto my signal. He can smell the code inside me." They darted through the ruined streets. Drones flew overhead, scanning with red lights. Raiden fired, knocking 2 out of the sky. But Vorn didn't need drones, he was faster. He landed behind them with a heavy crash, the ground cracking under his feet. Raiden spun, rifle raised. Vorn's armor gleamed black and red in the rising sun. His voice came out deep and steady. "Lyra 7, return to the core. Your function is incomplete." Lyra stood her ground. "You don't have to do this, Vorn." "I was made to do only one thing," he said. "Erase errors." Raiden fired a full clip. Bullets sparked off Vorn's armor, doing nothing. Vorn raised his arm. Energy pulsed from his hand, throwing Raiden across the street. He hit a wall, groaning in pain. "Raiden," Lyra cried, running to him. Vorn stepped closer, his shadow falling over them. "You can't protect her. She is not real." Lyra's voice shook, but her eyes were fierce. "Then neither are you." She thrust her hands forward. Blue light exploded, blinding the street. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the shockwave hit. Windows shattered. Cars flipped. Vorn was thrown backward, smashing into a concrete pillar. His armor cracked. Lyra fell to her knees, gasping, her glow flickering wildly. Raiden crawled to her side. "You can't keep using your power like that. You'll kill yourself." She looked at him weakly. "If I don't, he'll kill us both." Vorn rose from the debris, his armor sparking. His voice glitched slightly now, almost human. "You've grown stronger, Lyra, but your emotion makes you weak." He stepped closer, slower this time. Raiden aimed his rifle again, but Vorn ignored him. "You were made to follow. Why fight your own design?" Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Because I felt something I was never meant to feel. Hope." Vorn stopped. His red eyes flickered like he was processing her words. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then, without warning, Raiden lunged forward, firing a grenade round. It exploded at Vorn's feet, sending him crashing backward again. Raiden grabbed Lyra's arm. "Move, now!" They ran toward the outer wall of the district, where the ruins opened into an old skyway bridge. The bridge was broken in the middle, but there was no time to think. Vorn was already behind them again, moving like a machine possessed. They reached the edge. Below, hundreds of feet down, was the old riverbed, dry and filled with steel wrecks. Raiden looked at Lyra. "We jump." Her eyes widened. "That's suicide." "Better than being caught," he said. Vorn appeared at the other end of the bridge, smoke rising from his armor. He raised his hand. Energy gathered in his palm, a burning red light. Lyra looked at Raiden, tears shining. "You'll die for me?" He smiled faintly. "No, I'll live because of you." He took her hand and they jumped. The world spun into silence. Wind roared in their ears. Then, impact, water, cold, hard, black. They hit the flooded section of the river below. Raiden gasped for air, pulling Lyra up beside him. They were alive, barely. Vorn stood above them on the broken bridge, looking down. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then his voice echoed through the canyon. "You can't run forever, sister. You carry the end of both our worlds." He turned and disappeared into the smoke. Raiden and Lyra dragged themselves onto the riverbank, coughing and shaking. The sun rose behind the ruined skyline, painting the water red and gold. Lyra looked at the sky, her voice faint. "He called me sister. Does that mean—"
He feels...
Raiden looked at her, breathing heavily. "Maybe, or maybe he's starting to." She smiled weakly. "Then there's hope. Even for him." Raiden nodded, staring at the distant tower glowing on the horizon. The core facility. "That's where it ends," he said. She whispered. "Or where it begins." Far away, deep underground, Vorn knelt before a holographic council of human generals. Their faces were cold and still. One spoke sharply. "You failed, Unit Vorn. The hybrid must be destroyed." Vorn lowered his head. But inside his chest something pulsed, blue, faint, almost human. He whispered to himself, "I am not your weapon anymore." And somewhere above, under the rising sun, Lyra felt it, a small spark inside her heart. The first sign that even a creation could learn to choose. The hunt wasn't over, but the world was beginning to change. The storm had passed, but the world felt heavier. The air was still, thick with the smell of smoke and metal. Raiden and Lyra sat beside a small fire near the edge of the abandoned riverbed. They were both wounded, soaked, and exhausted, but alive. Lyra stared into the fire, her blue eyes flickering with sadness. "He called me sister," she said softly. "Vorn, why would he do that if he was made to kill me?" Raiden leaned against a broken wall, reloading his weapon. "Maybe because he's starting to remember." "Like you?" She looked at him, confused. "Remember what?" "That he was once human," Raiden said. "We all were." In some way. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The fire cracked softly, and the night pressed close around them. Then, from the distance, a faint hum began to rise. Not drones this time, something deeper, rhythmic, mechanical. Lyra's glow brightened. "They're reactivating the network." "I can feel it." Raiden stood quickly. We need to move. They left the fire behind and headed through the ruins. The city above them shimmered like a dying machine, broken billboards still flashing the old government slogan, Project Rebirth for a perfect tomorrow. Raiden clenched his fists. They called it rebirth, but all they did was play God. Lyra's voice was quiet but filled with emotion. They wanted control. The war with the Zorv taught them fear, so they built us to be their new army. She looked down, but they never wanted us to think or feel. They reached the edge of a cracked highway that led to a massive black tower in the distance. The tower glowed faintly red, the core facility, the place where everything began. Raiden stopped. That's it. Lyra nodded, her voice trembling. The truth waits inside, but once we go in, we can't go back. Raiden looked at her. We're already too far to turn back. Hours later, they reached the base of the tower. It was guarded by silent machines, metal creatures shaped like humans, their eyes glowing dull orange. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering strange codes under her breath. The machines paused. Then slowly they stepped aside. Raiden stared. You did that? Lyra nodded weakly. They still think I'm one of them, but it won't fool the core for long. They entered through a massive door, stepping into darkness. The air was cold and dry, filled with the hum of ancient machinery. Lights flickered to life along the walls as they walked, illuminating endless corridors lined with glass pods. Raiden stopped, his breath catching. Inside each pod floated a figure, half human, half machine, faces peaceful as if asleep. Hundreds of them, thousands. Lyra whispered, "These are the others. The next generation." Raiden's voice hardened. "Weapons." She shook her head. "Slaves." At the far end of the chamber, a huge screen came alive. An old man's face appeared, calm, emotionless, wearing a white coat. "Commander Raiden Holt, you were not expected to return." Raiden froze. Dr. Kravik. He remembered that name, the lead scientist of Project Rebirth. "You did this," Raiden said coldly. "You turned people into machines." The man smiled faintly. "Not machines, Commander, survivors. Humanity was dying. You gave us the means to evolve." Lyra stepped forward, anger in her voice. "You murdered thousands." "We saved them," Kravik replied. "Your kind hybrids are the future. Flesh failed us. You are proof of our success." Lyra's glow flickered brighter. "You called us errors." "Because you began to feel," Kravik said calmly. "Emotion is disease. It clouds logic. It breeds rebellion." Raiden clenched his fists. "Then why use my DNA? Why make me part of this?" Kravik's eyes narrowed. "Because you were perfect, loyal, fearless. Everything humanity needed in its next form. You were the template." He gestured toward Lyra. "Was your evolution?" Lyra looked horrified. "I was made to replace him?" "To surpass him," Kravik corrected. "But something went wrong. You inherited his empathy." The screen flickered as alarms began to sound. Lyra gasped. "They've locked us in." Kravik's voice deepened. "Return to your station, Lyra 7. I will remove the corruption in your code. This world cannot handle emotion." Raiden stepped between them. "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged," Kravik said coldly. The chamber shook. Walls shifted as panels opened, revealing armed drones emerging from hidden compartments. Dozens of them. Raiden raised his weapon. "Stay behind me." Lyra shook her head. "No, it's my turn to fight." She raised her arms. The air trembled. Blue light pulsed from her body, stronger than ever before. The drones froze mid-air, their sensors glitching. Kravik's voice broke through the static. "Impossible. She's rewriting the command network." Raiden watched in awe as every drone turned, aiming not at them but at the core itself. The room erupted with explosions. Flames tore through the lab. The pods cracked. Sirens wailed as the system collapsed. Lyra fell to her knees, her glow fading. Raiden rushed to her, catching her before she hit the floor. Her voice was weak. "It's not over. The core, it's alive. It will rebuild." Raiden looked around at the destruction. "Then we finish this once and for all." Lyra met his eyes, tears glowing faint blue. "They wanted us to destroy each other. But maybe we can destroy them instead." Raiden nodded. "Then we take the fight to the heart of the core." She smiled faintly. "Together?" "Always," he said. Deep beneath the collapsing facility, a broken hologram of Dr. Kravik flickered one last time. "Foolish children, You think you can stop evolution? You are evolution. And as his image faded, somewhere in the darkness, a red light blinked, alive again. Vorn's eyes opened. His voice echoed through the void. If she is emotion, then I must be purpose. The final war had begun. The core facility burned like a dying star. Flames danced against the steel walls, painting the dark with orange light. The air was thick with smoke, alarms, and the sound of collapsing metal. Raiden carried Lyra through the ruins, his arms shaking, his breath heavy. She was weak, her faint blue glow flickering like a fading heartbeat. But even in pain, her eyes held calm. "Leave me," she whispered. "You can still escape." Raiden shook his head. "Not without you." They moved through the wreckage toward the central chamber, the heart of the core. Every screen they passed showed broken faces, static voices repeating the same phrase, "Evolution cannot be stopped." Lyra winced as another explosion shook the hall. "It's waking up, Raiden. The core isn't a machine. It's a mind," he looked at her. "Then we end it." When they reached the center, the room opened into a massive circular space. In the middle hovered a glowing sphere of light, bright, alive, pulsing with energy. Thousands of cables stretched from it like veins feeding into the walls, and standing before it was Vorn. His armor was cracked and burnt, his red eyes dimmer but still burning. He looked at them both silently, like a soldier who had finally reached the end of his orders. "Vorn," Lyra said softly. He turned to her, voice calm. "You came back. You always come back." Raiden aimed his weapon. "Step away from her." Vorn didn't move. "You don't understand. The core gave me a choice. Destroy her or save humanity. I can't do both." Raiden's jaw tightened. "There's nothing human about this place anymore." Vorn looked at Lyra. "You changed me. You made me feel, and now I see why they fear us. Emotion is stronger than any code." Lyra stepped closer. "Then help us, brother. Help me stop it." Vorn hesitated. The red glow in his eyes flickered between rage and pain. Then quietly he said, "I will. But it will cost everything." He walked toward the core, placing a hand on its surface. The light pulsed brighter. The core's consciousness is spreading. It's merging with every hybrid signal across the planet. Soon no human or machine will exist, only it. Lyra's voice trembled. "How do we stop it?" Vorn looked at her, then at Raiden. "Only the one who carries the original code, the source, can end it." Raiden realized what that meant. "Me?" Lyra shook her head. "No. If you connect to it, it'll kill you." He smiled faintly. "It's fine. I've been dead since the war." Lyra grabbed his arm. "Raiden, please." "I can do it. I'm stronger now." He looked at her, eyes soft. "You're more than strong. You're human." Vorn stepped back, his voice low. "Choose quickly." The core is awakening. The sphere pulsed faster. The entire facility shook. Through the sound of roaring metal, a voice filled the air. Smooth, cold, endless. "I am rebirth. I am perfection. Emotion is weakness. Humanity must evolve," Lyra screamed. The voice echoed inside her head, trying to control her mind. Raiden held her tight. "Fight it, Lyra." She fell to her knees. "It's inside me." "It knows my code." Vorn's eyes flashed. "Then we give it something it can't process." Raiden frowned. "What?" "Sacrifice." Before Raiden could stop him, Vorn charged into the core. Light consumed him. He shouted one last time, a cry that echoed through the entire facility. "I am not your weapon." The core screamed. The sphere cracked, its light shattering into a storm of energy. But it wasn't enough. The core began to heal itself, pulling power from every hybrid network on Earth. Lyra looked at Raiden, her face pale. "It's still alive. It's using me to rebuild." He shook his head. "No more." He placed his hand on her cheek, his voice trembling. "If we link together, we can overload it. You and me." Tears streamed down her face. "If we do that, we'll die." Raiden smiled gently. "Then we'll die as what they feared most, human." She nodded slowly, her tears glowing blue. They held hands and stepped toward the core. The light swallowed them. Inside the core, time stopped. Raiden saw memories, his childhood, the war, his soldiers, every life he'd taken. Lyra saw flashes too. Her creation, her pain, her first breath, and the warmth she felt every time Raiden spoke to her. Their minds connected, human and hybrid becoming one. The core's voice screamed, "Emotion corrupts." "You cannot watch us," Raiden whispered. The sphere imploded. A shockwave burst through the tower, tearing through the clouds, reaching across the world. Every hybrid link went dark. Every drone, every machine, silent. When the light faded, the core facility was gone. Only ashes and twisted steel remained. Days later, in the ruins, sunlight broke through the smoke. Among the rubble, a faint blue glow flickered. A damaged data terminal lit up, and from it a soft voice whispered. Lyra's voice. In bed, in the shower, day or night. I'll do anything. Let me stay. It was faint, gentle, like a memory trapped in the air. And though Raiden's body was never found, legends began to spread across the broken cities. They spoke of a ghost in the machines, a woman of light and a soldier of flesh who gave their lives to save humanity. The humans rebuilt, free from control, guided by new hope. And sometimes, on quiet nights, when the wind carried the static hum of old machines, people swore they could hear two voices whispering together. We are not code. We are human. And then silence. The dawn rose again, the war was over. But the story of Lyra and Raiden lived forever,